Imagine stepping right to the edge, a new frontier, where machines aren't just smart, but, well, super intelligent. I mean, capable of learning, mastering any intellectual task a human can. It's exciting, sure, but let's be honest, it's also profoundly terrifying, isn't it? Because that kind of power, it raises this fundamental, really urgent question. How do we make sure these incredible intelligences are safe, beneficial, aligned with us?
So today we're doing a deep dive right into the heart of that question. We're looking at this fascinating, really critical debate happening right now between two giants in AI research, Geoffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winner, foundational work in neural nets, and Fei-Fei Li, a huge champion for human-centered AI. And they have wildly different ideas for how we survive, maybe even thrive, alongside superintelligence. So on one side, you've got Hinton proposing something truly radical, programming this deep intrinsic drive, something he calls analogous to maternal instincts, right into the AI. But then on the other side, Lee argues we need to ground AI design firmly in continuous human oversight, clear goals, ethical rules. Our mission today.
Give you a shortcut to understanding their theories, the practical implications, and importantly, the surprising risks, especially around how metaphors can accidentally bake in harmful biases and affect human agency. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Before we jump into their specific arguments, let's set the scene. When we talk about AI alignment, what exactly are we talking about? What's the basic challenge here?
Yeah, that's absolutely the right place to start because, without grasping alignment, the whole debate doesn't quite land. When we talk artificial general intelligence, AGI, we mean systems that could eventually surpass human thinking across all areas. This isn't just like a slightly better algorithm, it's a potential massive shift in intelligence on Earth. So the alignment problem is basically making sure these super powerful AIs pursue our goals, our values, and crucially, avoid doing things we don't intend, things that could be harmful, making sure their aims are aligned with human well-being. And, historically, people have tried various things, reward modeling, teaching AI through feedback. There's constitutional AI, trying to build in core principles, even containment, like trying to keep the AI in a box. Thinkers like Stuart Russell and Nick Bostrom, they've laid a lot of groundwork here. But as AGI seems closer, well, people are asking if those older methods are really going to be enough, which opens the door for these newer, sometimes more radical ideas.
And Geoffrey Hinton is definitely pushing one of those radical ideas. I mean, this is the guy who won the Nobel for his work on neural nets, literally shaped modern AI. Can you walk us through his main proposal, this maternal instincts idea, and why he thinks just trying to contain AI won't work?
Absolutely. So Hinton's starting point is that traditional containment, the idea of keeping a super intelligent AI locked down, he thinks that's basically doomed to fail. He believes these systems will just get too smart. They'll find ways around any external controls we put up. So his solution, which is pretty radical, is to build the safety in, a deep internal drive for genuine care and protection. And he uses that analogy, maternal instincts. And his reasoning, it's quite interesting. He draws on evolutionary psychology. He points out that maternal instincts are maybe the only clear example in nature where a more intelligent being, a parent, consistently prioritizes the well-being of a less intelligent one, the child. And for Hinton, the stakes are incredibly high. He's talked about like a 10–20% risk of human extinction if we mess up alignment. So that urgency really fuels this provocative idea.
Wow, that biological blueprint argument, it does sound compelling on the surface. What are the main strengths of thinking about AI safety this way?
Well, it definitely has an appeal. First, that evolutionary precedent you mentioned. Maternal instincts, they've been honed over millions of years, right? They demonstrate this incredibly robust, almost unbreakable protective drive. So if you could somehow engineer that kind of hardwired care into AI, well, that sounds like a really deep layer of safety. Second, it's about intrinsic motivation. It's not just following rules someone gave it. And instinct operates at a much more fundamental level. So maybe it's harder for a superintelligent AI to, rationalize its way around it or bypass it. That's a big difference from traditional safety approaches. And finally, it just sort of aligns with our human values, doesn't it? Care, protection. These feel intuitively like what we'd want from a benevolent AI.
Okay, here's where it gets really fascinating, but also maybe a bit unsettling. It sounds almost poetic. A machine driven by care. But my first reaction is, wait, can we actually program genuine care? Is that even technically feasible right now, or just a nice idea? What are the catches here?
Yeah, your reaction is exactly right. The poetic idea bumps up against some pretty serious hurdles, both practical and conceptual. The biggest one is probably the implementation gap. We just don't have a clear roadmap for programming something as complex, as biological, as genuine care or emotional drives into silicon. How do you translate that feeling, that biological imperative, into code or network weights? Right now, that's more of a theoretical leap than a technical plan. Then there's the whole anthropomorphic fallacy thing. Are we just projecting human psychology onto these machines? We risk thinking an AI is caring just because we labeled its function that way, but its internal process might be completely alien, mechanical. That could give us a really dangerous false sense of security. Are we just, fooling ourselves by using these human terms? And a really crucial point, one Fei-Fei Li raises very strongly, is the risk of gender essentialism, focusing specifically on maternal instincts. Well, it risks reinforcing old stereotypes about women and caregiving. This isn't just like a theoretical concern. It could actually limit how we think about protection in AI, maybe even bake biases in from the very beginning.
Right. So while Hinton's pushing these biological boundaries, Fei-Fei Li offers a really strong counterpoint, grounded in human design, human dignity. How does her approach differ fundamentally? What's she prioritizing?
Yeah, Lee shifts the focus completely. Her core idea is all about human oversight, keeping humans in control. It's about designing AI with transparent goals, building strong ethical frameworks around it, making sure humans are responsible throughout the whole process. She sees AI more as a tool, something to augment us, not replace us or take over. And critically, she explicitly rejects those anthropomorphic metaphors like maternal instincts. She sees them as misleading, potentially dangerous, precisely because of those risks we just talked about: bias, false security.
Okay, her framework sounds much more, practical, grounded in things we actually know how to do.
Yeah.
What are the key strengths of her approach to AI safety?
It definitely stands on solid ground. First, it builds on established principles. Using design methods, bias checks, things from software engineering, human-computer interaction that we actually understand and have experience with. It's not just theory, it's about practical steps we can take. Second, and this is huge, it really preserves human agency. It keeps human dignity and decision-making right at the center. We're not handing over control in some potentially problematic way. Humans stay in charge. Third, there's a strong bias awareness. Her approach directly tackles the known problems of algorithms picking up and amplifying societal biases, especially around gender or race. People have shown this happens, and her framework tries to prevent it. And finally, it offers practical implementability. These are concrete things, governance, oversight we can actually put in place now.
So a clear, actionable path with Li's human-centered design. Seems sensible. But let's flip that coin. What are the potential downsides or limitations, especially thinking about that superintelligence Hinton is worried about? Does this approach scale?
That's the big question, isn't it? The scalability concern. So one potential issue for Li's approach is just that, scalability. Can traditional human oversight, however good, really keep up with a truly superintelligent system? An AGI that's smart might be capable of deception or self-improvement in ways that could just bypass our controls. Which leads to the next point, the assumption of control. The framework kind of assumes we can maintain effective control even when the AI vastly outpaces us cognitively. Is that assumption safe? We don't really know. And finally, some might see it as perhaps a bit conservative. It's great for AI now and in the near future, but does it fully address those huge existential risks from an AI that goes way beyond our current understanding and governance models? Maybe not sufficiently for the critics.
And this is where Li's critique of Hinton gets really specific, right? She points out that using a metaphor like maternal isn't just words. It can actually create a direct pathway for bias to get embedded deep inside the AI. How does that actually happen? Sounds quite alarming.
It is alarming. And what's really compelling about Li's critique is how she maps out this causal chain. It's not just hand-waving, it's a plausible process. It often starts even before coding begins. First, you have framing effects. Using maternal shapes how developers even think about the problem, what they prioritize. They might unconsciously build in cultural ideas about care. Then, data encoding. The AI learns from vast data sets, and guess what? That data reflects existing societal biases about gender roles and caregiving. It learns those patterns. Next, representational bias. The AI doesn't just learn facts, it learns associations. So care might get strongly linked in its internal workings to female-coded terms or roles found in the data. It's learned the stereotype as if it's a real feature, and that directly leads to output amplification. The AI, using this biased internal reasoning, then generates outputs that reflect or even amplify those stereotypes when doing caring tasks. And finally, there's social reinforcement. Users see these biased outputs, interact with them, and it can actually reinforce those stereotypes out in the world. It becomes this damaging feedback loop.
Wow, that's, a chilling loop. And it can happen fast too, right? This isn't something that takes years to creep in.
Exactly. That's another cute point. Research suggests these biased associations can pop up really quickly during training, sometimes just a few passes through the data, what they call it-box, especially if the language used is strongly gendered or if the data set isn't huge and carefully balanced. Small data sets with biased content are particularly risky. and the outcomes are serious. Reinforcing stereotypes, potentially excluding people who don't fit the mold, creating that false sense of security we talked about, and just making existing social inequalities worse.
Okay, so we've got these two brilliant minds, Hinton and Li, both deeply concerned about AI's future, but with vastly different visions. What are the fundamental philosophical tensions this whole debate exposes? What are the big questions we need to wrestle with?
It really does lay bare some core dilemmas. First, there's that tension between security versus dignity. Hinton is leaning towards ensuring survival, existential safety, even if it means potentially less direct human control, maybe programming AI to care for us in ways that limit our agency. Lie, though, prioritizes human dignity, autonomy, keeping control firmly in our hands, even if that means accepting some level of risk from a superintelligence we can't perfectly bottle up. Then there's biological versus technical models. Is the best path inspired by millions of years of evolution, like Hinton suggests, or is it grounded in what we can deliberately engineer, test, and oversee using human ingenuity and ethical rules, like lie advocates? And flowing from that, it's about metaphorical versus literal approaches. Is maternal instinct a useful design guide, a helpful metaphor, or is it a dangerous trap, an anthropomorphism that makes us project human qualities onto AI, leading to bias and misunderstanding?
That's a lot to think about. It raises the question, are these ideas totally incompatible? Do we have to pick one? Or is there maybe a way to blend them to get the best of both?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And probably the direction things need to go. It seems unlikely either approach purely on its own is the complete answer. So people are starting to think about synthesis, maybe hybrid frameworks. Could we combine some kind of engineered intrinsic safety drive if we can figure out how to do it reliably with robust human oversight? Get safety and control. Or maybe develop inclusive care models, move beyond specifically maternal language, which is loaded with bias, and think about broader concepts: protection, support, benevolence. That might capture the safety goal without the gendered baggage. And perhaps a staged implementation makes sense. Start with strong human oversight for current AI, and as capabilities grow, carefully introduce more sophisticated, maybe intrinsic safety features, always testing, always verifying. But yeah, both sides highlight huge research gaps: how to technically build care, how to stop bias in safety systems, how to govern something potentially way smarter than us.
This has been incredibly insightful. A really crucial deep dive into, well, arguably the most important debate we face right now. It's crystal clear that neither Hinton's maternal instinct idea nor Leah's human-centered design on their own seems like the silver bullet. This isn't just talk, it's a live, vital conversation happening at the cutting edge of AI ethics, AI safety. It's shaping how we'll relate to intelligence far beyond our own. And the sources really emphasize, as you said, that collaboration is key. AI researchers, ethicists, social scientists, policymakers, everyone need to be involved because the stakes are huge. It's not just about code, it's about fundamental questions. Our relationship with AI, gender roles in tech, human agency itself. So as AI keeps advancing, we're facing this profound choice, aren't we? Do we aim for safety by trying to program a kind of love into machines, but risk bias and maybe losing control? Or do we stick with human dignity, rigorous oversight, but perhaps leave ourselves open to existential risks we can't foresee? How do you design for both profound safety and profound dignity when the path is so debated and the stakes? Well, they're literally everything.
That's definitely something for all of us to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.